Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you to the Swanee River Water Management District Governing Board meeting and public hearing. You can watch us on YouTube at youtube.com SRWMD. And it is April 8th at 9 a.m. and we're going to call our meeting to order. I think at this time we'll rise and we'll do our invocation and our pledge.
Father God, we thank you for this day, Lord. Thank you for your grace and your mercy, your love. Father, I pray everyone here this morning realizes that every day is a new beginning, a fresh start to the rest of our lives. I pray for kindness. I pray for your light and truth to guide our steps and our tongues as we take on the business at hand today. Father, I pray for each and every family represented here today. You will keep your hand upon them and protect them from harm and evil. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
All right, Miss Robin, would you do a roll call, please, ma'am?
Chair Johns,
Here.
Mr. Keith,
Here.
Mr. Schwab,
Here.
Mr. Smith,
Here.
Mr. Sessions,
Here.
Mr. Thompson,
Here.
Mr. Lloyd,
Here.
Mr. Wheeler. Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there any changes to our agenda?
Yes, ma'am, we have one update on agenda item 15, fiscal year 2024-2025 agreements with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection and local cooperative entities to receive Springs grants funding has been changed to an informational item.
Thank you, ma'am. All righty. Is there a motion to accept the agenda as changed?
Make that motion, Madam Chair.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carried. All righty. This time we'll open our floor to public comment. So if anyone would like to come up and speak, now would be a good time. I have a couple of cards here. Let's see. Donna Ellis, would you like to come up and speak at this time?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Donna Ellis. I live at 3488 185th Road, Northwest Swanee County in the Falmouth area. And I want to thank you for your transparency and also in allowing us to have public comment on this important issue. One of the concerns that I have in comparing the size of the two properties that we're going to be discussing, the Ellaville Tract versus the Riverview Tract in Madison County, is 152 acres, which is quite a difference in land mass. Also, the Ellaville Tract has been managed for over 30 years with taxpayers' dollars, utilizing controlled burns and other best practices that have resulted in an ecological diversity of both plants and animals that can hardly be ignored or easily replicated. Some of the wildlife found there is found in very small numbers other places. It's the stronghold of some of the most threatened and endangered species of our natives. The gopher tortoise, for example, one of my favorites, is designated as a keystone species, as its burrows, which are up to 10 feet deep and 30 to 40 feet long, serve as a refuge for 350 different species, from beetles to rattlesnakes, that utilize them as protection from the sun, the heat of summer heat, as well as safe havens during prescribed burns. For this reason, the tortoises and their burrows are protected under state law. Other endangered and threatened species located in the Ellaville Tract include the hognose snake, the eastern indigo snake, swallowtail kite, kestrels, and the Sherman fox squirrel. This is according to the biological survey done by the nonprofit Defenders of Wildlife, as well as the state Species Conservation Division. If this tract were to be traded for farming purposes, what becomes of these animals when their habitat is destroyed? What is the relocation or the mediation plan, or is there one? The Ellaville tract is not only ecologically significant for animals, but also for the many native plants, such as mature longleaf pine stands and the healthy wiregrass beds that exist there. These plants, upon which the animal population depend, are present there only because of good management practices that have been maintained over decades, and they're indicative of a very healthy ecosystem. The amount of intact ground cover on the Riverview tract is, and we're estimating because we're doing it from maps, approximately 380 acres, which is little more than half the amount on the Ellaville tract. Seeing the many acres of our county that have become what I call ecological deserts due to the solar farm installations, as well as the many woodland areas that have recently been devastated by the many hurricanes, it seems incomprehensible to me that we would consider Ellaville tract of the Twin River State Forest as a surplus rather than the treasure trove that it actually is for both the flora and the fauna that exists there. I would therefore urge you to remove the Ellaville tract from your surplus list and seek to acquire the Riverview Farm parcel through other means. Thank you for your thoughtful consideration of this important decision, as it will have very long-range ecological consequences. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have Lorelei McCraney.
Hello and good morning.
Good morning.
My name's Lorelei McCraney. I reside at 841 167th Place in Live Oak. I'm commenting on the proposed land swap of a 700-acre area within the Twin River State Forest Ellaville tract in Madison County for a 500-acre peanut farm, Riverview Farms, which is also in Madison County. The Ellaville tract was purchased in 1988 as part of a larger purchase. In 2012, it was designated as surplus land and, as such, is not valued by the district for conservation. However, the tract has been managed with prescribed berms for nearly 50 years. This has allowed for the natural development of an upland pine forest featuring around 300 acres of mature longleaf pines with an understory of wiregrass and other native plants and wildflowers. The tract supports a healthy population of gopher tortoises, a keystone species that supports over 300 animals and birds. Longleaf pine forests can enhance groundwater recharge and stream flow, especially during drought. That's because of the structure of the forest itself and because longleaf pines respond to drought by using less water. Existing longleaf pine forests represent less than 4% of the historic range in the southeast U.S., shrinking from 90 million acres to just 3 million acres. Between 2011 and 2020, in the Swanee River Basin, land use for upland forest, silviculture, and rangeland decreased significantly, while land use for development and agriculture has increased. Managing upland forests such as those in the Ellaville tract will help preserve what remains of our open spaces. The high and dry Ellaville tract is not what the district typically is interested in managing, but it is an integral part of the natural systems of the Swanee River Basin. Hurricane Idalia badly damaged the Ellaville tract. However, recent studies have found that damage can create new habitats, leading to colonization of new areas by plants and animals. The Withlacoochee River flows coming from Georgia are insufficient for current usage during dry years. To help remediate water shortages, longleaf pines provide excellent groundwater recharge functions as opposed to significant groundwater withdrawals for peanut crop irrigation. As these are some good reasons to keep the 700 acres in the Ellaville tract as valuable conservation land, I request that the board consider removing the Ellaville tract from the list of surplus lands. The Riverview Farms property is also an excellent candidate for conservation. Perhaps the Riverview Farm acreage can be purchased with Florida Forever or other land acquisition funds. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to comment today.
Thank you, ma'am. I also have a Sharon Wellendorf. Shane, there you go. It's either your writing or my eyes, and I'm not sure which this morning.
Ma'am, it's very much my writing. Morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm here to speak in regards to item 15, the Springs funding. The Springs funding was recently awarded to the Ladson Conservation Easement Project. It's a 1,600 acre tract, 1,800 acre tract in Jefferson County. It's one of those truly wild and mysterious places, amazing water resources. It's got over 2 miles of the Osceola, almost 2 miles of the Wasissa River in it, and it surrounds Nuttall Rise, which is one of our first magnitude springs and definitely a magical place in Florida. So this conservation easement and the funding will help with its acquisition. In addition to the Springs funding, Toll Timbers secured a grant with the Knobloch Family Foundation to cover a portion of the acquisition as well as the remaining due diligence costs. And the landowner is also donating a portion of that acquisition. So we will be able to wrap this project hopefully up in the next year. Toll Timbers will be the long-term monitor and steward of this easement and will defend the terms of this conservation easement. And we're excited to have this opportunity to be working on this project. So thank you to you and thank you to your staff. It was, they were very helpful and glad to be part of this.
Well, we're glad that you're a part of it as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All righty. Stacy Greco? Okay, item 12? Okay. And Rick Hutton?
I'll wait for item
14, got it, okay. 12 and 14. Is there any other comment at this time? Not, we'll close public comment, and move on to our agenda. All right, we have, our next item is our consent agenda. If everyone has had time to study up, and is there a motion?
Made a motion, Madam Chair.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye. 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 Those opposed, like sign. Motion carried. We have cooperating agencies other than the ones that are waiting to speak today, or? All righty.
Probably also have your report as well. But I would like to recognize that Shane has already introduced himself. And Rick as well, with PRU, today. With that, and then Stacy did introduce herself as well. Lucy Greco, with the Environmental Protection Department. Not been here for some time, but of special recognition. Does not represent a cooperator at this time, but I do want to recognize that we have Steve Minnis, a long time employee here in the district. With that, Madam Chair,
All right, thank you very much.
And just for the record, I just want everybody to know that Steve is a quitter.
Getting that title right.
Oh, that's what it is, absolutely.
Oh, dear. All right, before we move on to our recognition, let's go ahead and do our report.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. I present the hydrologic conditions report for March 2025. I'd like to thank Brandy Sistrunk. She sent me over this great photo of Gilchrist Blue Spring Run. She was out doing some continuous monitoring repairs, I believe, on some of the equipment out there, and she snapped this. And I think it's a great photo, not only for the hydro report, but also for our Springs Protection and Awareness Month. This is a beautiful area. I did want to point out we do have some stuff in bloom out here. I had to Had to get an expert opinion because I'm not really a flower guy, but it turns out these are butterweed. So it's these line a lot of the springs out in our area, and beautiful yellow flowers. I love to see this time of year when things start blooming. I just don't like the other yellow stuff, which really drives my hay fever. But this is a great photo. My thanks once again goes out to Brandy. I think it's a great way to start our hydro report for March 2025. So rainfall for March 2025, we had a district-wide average just almost at 6 inches, 5.97 to be exact. That's 35% higher than that long-term average of 4.4 inches. I did want to mention at the end of February, we did have a rainfall deficit of just over 0.6 of an inch, moving that window of time forward and picking up a little bit of extra rainfall from March 2025 versus March 2024. We were able to get a surplus of 0.5 inches, roughly half an inch, just a little bit over that. Taking a look at our map, the 5 to 6 inch range encompasses that district-wide average for the month. And we had some areas, or had some categories less than that, 4 to 5 inches, and then less than 4 inches in the dark blue and light blue, respectively. We see a lot of those kind of in the southern part here in Jefferson County, up into Taylor, over into Hamilton, Suwannee. Go back over into Hamilton, Suwannee counties as well. Most of that lower amounts of rainfall occurred on the eastern boundary here, Baker County, Bradford County, down into Alachua, and then even down south in Dixie County as well. Now, on the flip side of that, 6 to 7 inches in orange represents that first category higher than the average. The next category, 7 to 8 inches in red, and then we had some areas of more than 8 inches of rainfall this past month. Levy County, Gilchrist County up into Lafayette, even over into Alachua. This big long line here from Taylor County through Lafayette into Suwannee, over a little bit into Columbia, and up in the western part, Jefferson County into Madison County as well, all seeing more than 8 inches of rainfall for the month in certain spots, and that's in that pink color on the map. We had 2 separate big rainfall events this month, and we'll start with the first one. If you do recall, right before our board meeting last month, we had just gotten out of one. So this was the March 8th through the 10th, 3-day span of rain, basically, for the top 2/3 roughly of our district. We got a district-wide average of 3.4 inches during that time period. Not a lot of rain down in the southern part of our district, less than 2 inches. We can see that in that light blue color. But as I mentioned, the top 2/3 roughly of our district seeing the higher amounts of rain. The high amounts, 4 to 5 inches in orange, 5 to 6 in red. And then we did see this big swath right here that was illustrated on the previous map. But this is Taylor County through Lafayette into Suwannee and even into Columbia as well, seeing more than 6 inches of rainfall during that 3-day span. Our next rainfall event was a 2-day event. This was the very end of March, March 30th and the 31st. We got a district-wide average of 1.3 inches. And this was an interesting event too, because most of it came from the south up through the south to the southern part of our district. We see areas of 3 to 4 inches in orange, 4 to 5 inches in red, and parts of Levy County and Gilchrist County saw more than 5 inches of rainfall with those systems coming up from the Gulf during that time period. I did want to mention the total amount of rainfall for these 2 events was around 4.8 inches, which is over 80% of our rainfall coming from 5 days roughly of rain in our month. With that said, our departure from normal precipitation shows the district with mostly rainfall surpluses, anywhere from breaking even to an inch of surplus in the lighter green color up north, 1 to 2 inches of rainfall surplus in the darker green as we start to move south in the district, 2 to 3 inches of rainfall surplus in the blue, and then the purple color represents 3 to 4 inches of rainfall surplus, and that can be found in the southern part of our district here, Dixie, Gilchrist, and Levy counties. With that said, stream flow conditions for March 2025, really almost everything in almost everything in the normal category, 25th to 75th percentiles to begin and end the month, with a couple of, actually 3 exceptions. The Steinhatchee and then 2 gauges on the Suwannee, Fargo and White Springs all ended in the above normal, that 75th to 90th percentile. 1 gauge up in South Georgia, the Alapaha did end in the below normal, the 10th to 25th percentile. But other than that 1 gauge, everything else enjoying normal stream flow conditions through the month of March. This is the upper Florida and aquifer levels. This is the end of February. I wanted to show this to compare with our March. What we're seeing in February were areas, big areas in our district of 75th to 90th percentile, lining anywhere from Dixie County, kind of curving in through the Suwannee County, and over in our western part, Madison, Taylor, and Jefferson. Saw some areas of that over in Hamilton, and then even over the eastern part of our district, Baker County, Union County, Bradford County, and Gilchrist County, and then Levy County all had a single well measuring 75th to 90th percentile as well. Mostly the other parts of our district enjoying that normal range, that 25th to 75th percentile. And then we did have some areas of above 90th, kind of lining Eastern Taylor County over into Lafayette County. One well over in Suwannee, and then there was a well over in Jefferson, and then one in North Taylor as well. Fast forward 1 month, we see a little bit of a different picture here. Most of the northern part of our district, I'd say probably half of the district, maybe more, enjoying that 75th to 90th percentile level. We did see some expansion of that above 90th percentile as well over in Jefferson, Madison, even down into Taylor, along the border with Suwannee and Columbia, even kind of lining the river up here due to some increase in rainfall that we had up there between Hamilton and Columbia counties as well. South Baker also showing some wells that are above 90th percentile too. This area I did want to point out at the last board meeting, we had some abnormally dry areas down in here. With that rainfall, it's kind of jumped up into the upper part, but it's still in the 25th to 75th percentile as of the date this was created. I think some of the wells have probably jumped up to around 80% or so, just seeing some of that rain that we had at the end of the month. This is U.S. Drought Monitor. This was released Thursday, April 3rd. I wanted to point out nothing in our district is showing any sort of drought characteristics currently. Now, right outside of our boundaries, we've got Levy County and then over into Alachua County seeing just a little bit of the abnormally dry. But it's just an interesting comparison of North Florida versus Peninsular Florida, because they're really hurting for some rain down in that area. Moderate drought and severe drought are persistent in various areas of Peninsular Florida. I did want to mention too, we are still winding down our small La Nina that we had. That one's expected to switch over into the more El Nino Southern Oscillation neutral conditions. That should take place probably within the next month or so. But as we go through the summer, those neutral conditions will continue. We've got about a 62% chance of that going from June to August. And then I think on down the road, they're kind of fighting between those neutral conditions and then possibly going back into another La Nina. So we'll have to stay tuned for that down the road. That said, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's seasonal outlook for April through June shows our area with equal chances of normal, above normal, or below normal rainfall probabilities. That's due to us going into the more neutral conditions where we don't have a system that causes more rain in our area or less rain in our area. So we're kind of in that in-between time. So that would make sense why we're seeing that. But we are still going to be seeing above normal temperature probabilities through April through June as well. And that's really for most of the United States, southern, and then up into the eastern seaboard of the United States as well. All right, our March 2025 summary, we had a rainfall amount of almost 6 inches, 5.97, 35% higher than that long-term average of 4.4 inches. We did improve on our deficit at the end of February. We were just over 0.6 of an inch of deficit. Moving that window of time forward, we are now in a surplus of just over 0.5 inch. District-wide upper Florida and aquifer levels did rise. We went from the 73rd percentile in February to the 79th at the end of the month, and that's due to a median level increase across our monitored wells of about 0.6 of a foot. As I mentioned, the El Nino Southern Oscillation neutral conditions are favored to develop in the next month and persist through the summer with about a 62% chance from June to August of going on down the road. And finally, according to the U.S. Drought Monitor, the most recent update, no drought conditions are currently existing within the district boundary, but once you get just outside of our boundary, you do see some drought conditions as we go down in Peninsular Florida. With that, Madam Chair, I'll take any questions that the board may have.
Any questions from the board? Yes, sir.
You know the date of the first hurricane this year?
Madam Chair. I wish I could predict that. That would be really great if I could. I can tell you that they should be coming out with their predictions in May. But I will definitely keep the board abreast of everything.
Sounds good.
None in North Florida.
I'm done. I'm done. Hurricanes in this area for sure. Sure.
I don't think we've recovered from the last two yet.
Have not.
Any other questions? No? All right, thank you
Thank you
so
very much, Madam
much.
Chair.
All right. Hugh, have you got something on your plate for us today?
Yes, ma'am, I do, Madam Chair. And we have two recognitions, staff recognitions today. The first of which Tim will be presenting is for Paul Buchanan. We're recognizing him for 35 years of service. And we also have Lisa Cheshire, who has been here for over 36 years. And I'll be presenting that recognition as well. And if the board so desires, once Tim finishes with Paul's recognition, we'd like to have a board picture with him. And then while the board is still up, we'd like to have a picture with Lisa as well before I give the presentation.
All right, great. Thank you.
All right. So,
Good morning,
Madam
Tim.
Chair, members of the board, I have the great honor of recognizing a valuable and dedicated employee here at the district, and that is our Geographic Information Systems Program Manager, Paul Buchanan, or Buchanan, as some people pronounce it. Paul has worked at Swanee River Water Management District since April of 1990. His responsibilities include overall administration of the geographical information system activities such as spatial data analysis, map production, online and mobile GIS, and GIS data storage management. He's also involved in the district's global positioning systems activities, as well as acquisition and digital processing of digital aerial photography, satellite imagery, and LiDAR data. Paul graduated from the University of South Alabama in 1987 with a BS degree in geography. He also received a master's degree from the University of South Carolina in geography with emphasis in GIS and remote sensing in 1990. Paul has met the standards and the requirements as established by the GIS Certification Institute for a certified geographic information systems professional. Way to go. Paul is originally from Panama City, Florida. His hobbies include running, cycling, and sports photography. Interesting. Paul carried the Olympic torch in Atlanta in 1996 Summer Olympic Torch Relay. I'd also like to mention that Paul has been recognized by both the state and local emergency management agencies for participation and assistance during disasters and emergencies. So we are recognizing Paul today for 35 years of service.
All right, board members.
You can move this back about 10 feet, but make do. Back up a little bit, Paul. Congratulations, sir. Congratulations. You were 35, Paul. Scooch in for me if you don't mind. Perfect. All right. Tim, can you scooch in just a little bit? Thank you. All right, 1, 2, 3. All right, hang on. Don't move. Getting the back up just in case. All right, 1, 2, 3.
Lisa, can we ask you to come up?
All right, everybody scoot back in again like you like each other. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Stand still. 1, 2, 3. All right.
Lisa, if you'll remain.
Okay.
Great. Are you sure?
Good morning, Madam Chair and Board. It is with mixed emotions that we recognize Lisa today for her 36 years plus of service to the district with that. she provided a prop that's being passed down by the board. Take a look at it, and I'll have some information about that in just a moment that Lisa put together. And Lisa's been with the district since January of 1989, and she was hired by the district's second executive director, Donald Morgan. And she was hired as a staff assistant in the district secretarial pool. Her annual starting salary was just over $11,000 at that time. Doesn't buy what it used to. But over the next 10 years, Lisa worked as administrative assistant for the administration, communications, resource management, and land acquisition and management departments. And over the last 36 years, she's witnessed the district, as you may suspect, undergo an amazing transformation of technology and advancements, from the typewriter to computers and laptops, handwritten messages, snail mail to email, beepers to cell phones, and now smartphones and social media. And from referencing style guides and the Webster Dictionary to AI. Think about the last time you saw a phone book in use with that. And things have improved somewhat. A lot. And certainly have changed a lot. Some of the some of the duties she performed while she was in the resource management group, which was called the permitting department at that time. It involved helping the water well contractors one-on-one through the permitting process, which included filling out their carbon copy applications, verifying section, township, and range on a paper map, documenting that with an ink pen, where the wells were going, and then writing down the directions so that our compliance technician could go out and take a look at the well installation with that. And that was during rural route times, if you remember those addresses, before the 911 came on board. As do I, Mr. Sessions. Lisa issued water use permits with the allocations manually calculated by the number of acres being grown for agricultural applications and the types of crops that are growing. So in basis, still somewhat in process today, although not manually calculated, that David works on as well. And then she also transcribed many hours of notes and letters recorded by the division director from a tape recorder. While in the communications department, she began developing what's now known as the district's media report, which was a newspaper clipping of any activities that the district may have been involved with, from the approximately 26 daily and weekly news sources across the district. There aren't that many today, not in hard copy. But she would tape those articles to a piece of paper and then make a copy of it for final distribution to the board members, so that the board can be aware of the activities that the district was involved with. Troy, be glad for social media. She developed the data dictionary for the slide projector program, so that pictures of projects could be shown to board members, and assisted the educational coordinator with a lot of the environmental education projects within each of the school systems. However, getting to the prop that was passed down, one of the most important responsibilities Lisa told me that she had at the time was to ensure that there were 24 bottles of Swanee River Gold that were in stock, labeled, and filled with actual Swanee River water. And that was so that the executive director at that time, Jerry Scarborough, would always have them ready to drink whenever he was giving an outreach presentation to groups around the district, demonstrating his confidence in the work that the district does relative to water quality, our water resources in the district. While in the land acquisition and management department, she created the very first form that was used to administer the special use license program, which we call our special use agreements now, which are online, recently gone online due to improvements in technology. In 1999, Lisa was promoted as administrative and governing board coordinator. And in this position, she had the privilege to work over her time with a total of 31 governing board members, two of which still continue to serve today, Johns and Mr. Swab. Back then, the minutes were recorded manually, or manually recorded on a cassette tape and then transcribed with one of the foot pedal machines, and the earphones, and then routed around in hard copy, for editing and, approval. In 2004, because of the variety of job duties and experiences offered to her by the district, along with her love of people in general, Lisa began developing her career in the human resources field by taking courses at Valdosta State in human resource management. She became certified as professional human resources and then received her bachelor's degree in business administration in 2014. She became the HR office chief, which is her current title she's retiring from, in February of 2019. During her tenure at the district, she's worked directly for and with six executive directors and 2 interim executive directors. She's been married for 41 and a half years to Cecil. He is retired from the Swanee Valley Electric Company. They've got 2 beautiful daughters, Carly Cheshire, who lives in Atlanta and works for Paget Law Group in human resources, and Haley Radford, who works for the Suwannee County School Board as a certification specialist. And she's also got 2 granddaughters, Paisley Radford, age 11, and Macy Radford, age 9. Lisa's grateful and excited for this next season in her life and the ability to spend more precious time with her family and grandchildren. Nevertheless, she'll truly miss her friends and work family here that she spent so much time with. And she's been fortunate to spend each day with them over the last 36 plus years. She'll cherish all the memories and the lessons learned that have molded her into the person that she is today. And I want to express my personal appreciation for all the assistance that she offered to me as I became director, and that she has continued to support the district and its mission, and me and my role with this. Thank you, Lisa. Happy retirement.
That's very sweet. Thank you.
Would you like that? Anywhere?
Yeah, well, I wrote it down.
Should I go get some tissue?
I got one.
Okay.
Tim said it wasn't enough. It's probably not. Just want to thank you. All the support. Couldn't ask for a better place to work. While I raised my family and worked my way through the career I love, human resources. Here, you read it.
I'm not retiring. Retiring is a big step, as this district has been a big part of my everyday life for 36 years. It's time to enjoy my family, take some trips, and allow someone else to receive the blessings that she's been provided. The transition and succession of this position should be very smooth. I believe my predecessor will do great things for this district. Although I'm excited for this new season, she'll truly miss being here at the district.
You guys want to say one thing? So Lisa was one of my first and best friends I met when I moved here.
Aw. Thank you, Hugh. Yes, go ahead. Yeah.
Madam Chair, members of the governing board, good morning. Steve Ennis. I'll fill out a card afterwards. I just, if you don't mind, like to take this opportunity to thank Lisa for her service to the district, her loyalty to the district. I think Tim will acknowledge that as well. Her integrity. I mean, it's just awesome. I can't tell you how much she's helped me when I was with the district and navigating through some very difficult personnel issues and throughout the times. So I'm not one for big speeches, but again, I just want to state my appreciation for Lisa.
Thank you, Steve. And Lisa, the board thanks you so very much for everything that you've done and all the lives that you've touched over the last 36 years is just tremendous. And we certainly appreciate all that you've given to the district. Yes, ma'am. All righty. Boy, that was heart-rending.
Where's our tissues?
Yeah. Oh, goodness. All right. We will move on then to Tom. Tom, do you have anything for us today?
Just one thing, at the previous meeting, we talked about the Mr. Hill's lawsuit, that if you'll recall, the circuit court had entered judgment against him and also entered an order that he could not bring lawsuits challenging the ownership of the Country Club Road property pro se anymore. He was enjoined from doing that. He had appealed that to the First District Court of Appeal. The First District Court of Appeal affirmed the circuit court. He filed a motion for rehearing. Since the last meeting, the District Court of Appeal has denied that motion for rehearing. So that case should be concluded at the First District Court of Appeal, and we should be able to move.
All right. That's good news. Long time in coming. Any questions for Tom? Okay. Then our next would be Tim. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning again, Madam Chair, members of the board, those in attendance. Before we get started with our agenda items, I'm excited to announce that we have a new member in our finance team. So I would ask Ms. Pam Shaw to come up and introduce our new employee at this time.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. I am so excited to introduce you all to Talisha Solomon, our newest member of the finance team. She comes to us as our finance specialist too. And she actually came to us about 3 weeks ago. So she's holding on here. She's staying with us. So we're really excited. And she's loving what she's doing, right? So we're excited about that. She comes from Madison County. She worked with the Madison County and Jefferson County School Board, where most of her career has been in the school board system. So she's been an administrator. She's been in accounts payable. She has also done grants management, which I'm highly excited about getting her into that part of our finance team. She earned her associate's degree at the North Florida College, and she went on to get her bachelor's degree in human resources with a minor in accounting. And then she actually pursued her and got her master's of business administration as organizational leadership from an Ashford University. It's kind of affiliated with the University of Arizona. So she's pursued her career. It's been very important to her to develop her education. She is the proud mother of a 13-year-old daughter, and she holds a strong commitment not only to her career, but to her family. Her family is central in her life. And so when she's not here, she really enjoys spending time with her family, traveling. She has passion about traveling and going to new places and creating memories with her daughter and her family, because they all travel together and do things together. But she also is very involved in her daughter's extracurricular activities, which I think really takes a lot of her time when she's not here with us. But we are really proud to have Talisha come and join our finance team with the district. So
welcome. Welcome, Talisha.
And I'll ask Leroy Marshall to come forward and introduce another employee.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Lisa in the HR department has been very busy, and I appreciate it. We were able to hire Hayes Paul, who is here. We were able to hire him as an environmental scientist too in the resource management division. Prior to joining the district, Hayes was employed with the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission, Conservation Commission, as a land manager in the Big Bend WMA in Taylor and Dixie counties. Prior to working with FWC, Hayes was employed by a land management company that was a permanent contractor with Florida Power and Light. His position there involved conducting SW3P inspections and overseeing projects that implemented best management practices on FPL construction sites to prevent stormwater erosion. In the past, he has worked for a forestry company and an environmental consulting firm doing mitigation bank projects in Southwest Florida. Hayes was able to get his Bachelor of Science in Horticultural Sciences from Florida Southern College in Lakeland, Florida, and a Master of Science in Forest Resources and Conservation with a concentration in Hydraulic Sciences from the University of Florida in Gainesville. Hayes is a fifth-generation Floridian, grew up on his family's farm in Arcadia, Florida, where they grow citrus and raise cattle. He enjoys time with his wife, Katina, and their two children, daughter Dawson and son Pearson. They love to go out in the water and retreat to the mountains and go hiking. So Hayes, we're happy to have him. We still need to hire a couple more, but we are happy to have him, and he's already going out and doing inspections. So I want to introduce Hayes to you all.
Welcome, Hayes. Thank you.
Here, you can have that. So, Madam Chair, we're definitely excited to have the new employees, but I do want to take this opportunity just to say that Lisa is going to be missed. She, as mentioned, was an extremely loyal employee with just a wealth of knowledge and just great help. And I just wanted to take that opportunity to make that statement. So for Business and Community Services, you will find items number 9 through 15 on this morning's agenda. Item number 9 will be a facilities update, and that will be given from our Office of Administration Chief, Mr. Ben Glass. Item number 10 was approved by way of the consent agenda, so thank you for that approval. Item number 11 is an informational item. Item number 12 is a water use permit item. This will be presented by our Regulatory Office Chief, Mr. David King, and this item will be found on BCS page 9. Item number 13 is another informational item. Item number 14 is in reference to the Alternative Water Supply Grant Funds. This item will be presented by Mary Diaz from the Resource Management and Projects Division. And then, as stated earlier, item number 15 is also an informational item, and I think Mary or Leroy one will cover that item. So I'll call Ben up at this time.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board.
Good morning.
Just a quick update for you this morning. Hopefully you noticed when you walked in that our roof is for all intents and purposes done. We have a very short punch list that we're still working on them to complete a few finish items. But the gutters went up last week. They look really good. We got to try them out yesterday, and they work really well also. So we're happy about that. On the interior, we're on our last hallway for painting and recarpeting. The main painting is completed, so we're waiting on the flooring crew to come in later this week, tear out the old carpet and install the new tiles. And once we do that and finish some last punch-up items there, we'll be finished with the interior. So with that being said, if any of the board members are interested in walking through, taking a look at any of the improvements, I'll be happy to take you around after the meeting. As far as phase 2 of our exterior renovation, we did complete a mandatory meeting with those interested in submitting proposals for the berm removal and siding installation. We had 9 firms attend that meeting. Those proposals are due into the district next week. So we look forward to hopefully receiving a lot of good proposals on that project, which should come back to you hopefully in May. If not May, then definitely in June for your consideration.
And on the siding, are we going to completely take out all the siding, or is it just repair areas? How are we doing the siding?
So we did that through an RFP process. So to some degree, we're leaving that up to the proposers to propose the most cost-effective solution. We did ask for fiber cement siding, so we would be looking at either going over the T111 or removing it and replacing it with some form of fiber cement siding.
Okay. All right. Hopefully we'll get some good proposals in.
So.
Any questions for Ben? Nope. Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board again. Before David and Mary come up, just wanted to give you an update on our CTP program. As I informed you guys last month, we put all of our CTP consultants, we paused all of our work so that we could work with FEMA to get everything back in line. We have spent the last month trying to comply with every request they have had. We have submitted all of the documentation to revise the scope of work for all 9 of our contracts. We have gotten that language approved, and we're going to submit that here in the near future. We have also, FEMA has changed their invoice process, and we have made all the corrections to our invoice process and have actually submitted all of the invoices we have received up through the point when they were asked to stop work. All of those invoices have been submitted, and we are waiting on FEMA to do their manual review and let us know how we're doing on submitting our invoices. Hopefully, we will hear from them in the coming weeks that we have done everything they asked, and we will go through that process. And at that point, then we will reevaluate when we're ready to start the consultants back up. But until that, we've done everything, and we've submitted everything, and we're just now sitting back and waiting until we hear from them.
Okie dokie.
Okay. Leroy, what's the timeline typically for reimbursement? I mean, if we have a consultant firm that we're doing business with, and it's a project that's been approved, is the funds, I guess I say, are the funds received prior to that being issued, or are we actually doing the contract and then asking for reimbursement from FEMA? And if so, how long a process is that?
Okay. Previously, that process was pretty quick. We would get the invoice within 45 days. We would review the invoice, send that through for approval, and then we would send it through our AccuFund, through our finance, and they would disperse the payment to the consultant. We would then request the payment from FEMA, and typically within 2 days, we had that money in our bank. That process has now changed. The process that we do hasn't changed, but when we submit it to FEMA, again, before it was pretty automatic. You ask for it, you get it. Now there's a manual review of all of the invoices. So when we submit it, it has to be reviewed by FEMA, and then they will let us know that the invoice is okay, and then we can submit for reimbursement. And the expectation is that portion is still the same, that it would be 2 days. But the part that was added was the manual review. We don't, this is the first time we've done it, so we don't know how long it's going to be. We've heard up to 30 days, but we don't know at this point.
Well, I was just hoping that it wasn't similar to the, like, storm restoration funds that being applied for by other entities other than the district, taking years to be able to reimburse. I've been digging into that, trying to figure out why it takes so long, and there's just layer after layer after layer of verification, and Maybe it's needed, maybe it's not, I don't know, but I was curious. Thank you.
Any other questions for Leroy? All right, sir, good luck. Good morning.
Morning. Morning. Lisa, congratulations on your retirement. She's already out. Well,
He's already retired.
she's already.
Eddie,
Looks like she was just here. Chairman Johns, members of the board, David King, I'm the chief of the district's Office of Water Use Services. I'm here to present for your action the water use permit for a new golf course located within the city of Alachua, referred to as Tomoka Hills Golf Course. The background and summary on the project, the water use permit applications with relatively smaller allocations of water and thus less potential for impacts are delegated to our executive director for approval. Water use permits that will come before the board for action are those with 1 million gallons per day allocations or greater, those that are recommended for not denial, or applications where we receive a substantial objection to the application. With this project, we received an objection to issuance from Alachua County. Staff have been in communications with the interested parties during the permit review process to address their concerns. And presenting this project here to the board gives the interested parties the chance to voice their concerns and for the board to hear them. The permit presented to you today is a renewal of an existing water use permit with an increase in allocation and a change in use type from agricultural to recreational irrigation. We have a map to refer to. Okay. So in red is the golf course location. The golf course site's located along I-75 just south of US 441 on the west side of the city of Alachua. The applicant proposes to construct a 94-acre, 18-hole golf course within the 329-acre property. The water use permit would authorize irrigation of turf grass upon construction of the golf course. In addition to constructing the golf course playing areas, the applicant will construct a roughly 2-acre irrigation holding pond that's underlined by an impermeable liner to prevent seepage loss from that pond. The irrigation pond will be supplemented with groundwater from 2 wells equipped with a float control shutoff switch. An irrigation pump station will pull water from the pond to feed the irrigation system. The requested and recommended allocation is 0.2536 million gallons per day. According to the MFL recovery strategy for the lower Santa Fe and the Chautauqua rivers, this project would require an impact offset in order to meet the permit criteria. The applicant provided a suitable offset that involved the voluntary retirement of a permitted allocation from a nearby water use permit. And those are the areas in blue on the map. According to the MFL recovery strategy, the use with the offset and allocation is eligible to receive a permit with a duration of 5 years. The irrigation wells and pump will be monitored with totalizing flow meters with monthly volume usage reported to the district. The recommended permit conditions include an irrigation audit of the system at the 5-year renewal period, demonstrate the actual volume needed for efficient irrigation based on the site conditions and the established irrigation system. Staff has determined that the application is complete and satisfies the conditions for issuance in Chapter 40B2 Florida Administrative Code. And that's the summary and background. The recommendation is staff recommends the board to approve the renewal of the water use permit number 2-001-218914-3 with 18 standard conditions and 9 special limiting conditions for the Tomoka Hills Golf Course in Alachua County.
Any questions for David? Yes, sir.
This company is voluntarily retiring 200,000 gallons a day. Is any of that permitted water being used?
The farm there has historical use on it, and it has the ability to use that allocation with their irrigation systems.
No, we allocated. My question is any of that 200,000 gallons a day being used at this time? Are they maxing out their permit? Are we gaining anything with this retirement?
So their allocation of 0.4 MGD, their use was roughly 0.2 MGD. They did demonstrate the ability for their irrigation system to use that amount, but historically the use was not there.
So they're not using it.
They had not used it, but they did demonstrate the ability to use it.
Any other questions on the permit application? So you reviewed it thoroughly, and they've met all of the requirements for approval of this permit?
Yes, ma'am, according to the recovery strategy that's in place today.
Okay, thank you. At this time, before we vote, I think we have one speaker that would like to address this item, and that would be Stacy Greco. Thank you, David.
Thank you. Thank you for hearing this permit. And I did provide some slides. Thank you. So thank you so much for taking your time so that we can discuss this here at this public forum. Next slide, please. So you will recognize this is from your staff's 2022 Lower Santa Fe Ichetucknee MFL status assessment. From the map that Mr. King showed, you see that this permit is within the Lower Santa Fe Ichetucknee minimum flows and levels area. So as of that 2022 status assessment, we are in recovery at the Highway 441 and the Highway 27 bridges. So this area is already constrained with our current pumping. Next slide. In December of 2023, the North Florida Regional Water Supply Plan was updated, and this was looking at projected growth. And this region that we are within and this permit is within is really projecting a lot of growth with 1 million more people by 2045 and an increase in demand needing to find 135 million gallons a day. Which that's a lot of growth for this area. And in that report, they identified how to get there, and it's largely with projects. And you'll see that price tag at over $2 billion, and that was 2023 dollars, so we know that's all more now. Also identified conservation, which really is the fiscally responsible path at a very more favorable return on investment. For every 3.4 million spent, we can save 1 million gallons a day. And so I feel like every single permit, that is an opportunity to start getting this water conservation. So that is the time to, if we can do better with the water that we have, then we don't have to be identifying these expensive projects to do more offset with our future water use. Next slide. This is a little outdated. This is showing permits in the Lower Santa Fe area from 2019. And my point is that most of the permits are very small. So the permit that we're discussing today is kind of that turquoisey color. And then there's also those light blue ones. Those are all of these smaller permits, which then all add up to have this cumulative effect that we're seeing in this basin. Next slide. Okay, so the permit that we're talking about today, so this was a historical ag permit at point 2. They are asking for an increased allocation, so now at 0.25. It's also switching the use, so it was ag, it's now going to be recreational. I believe they're abandoning a well and then installing 2 new ones, so I'm not sure why that's not a new permit, but you're more familiar with your rules. And to put this in context to other permits, so the Meadowbrook Golf Course is permitted in Alachua County, and they're irrigating 80 acres and using much less water at 0.157. This permit request is very similar in size to the whole city of Archer's water system. So that's providing water to 1,500 customers. So that just helps put it in perspective. It's challenging for me to sometimes wrap my brain around 1 million gallons a day. Next slide, please. So the applicant's handbook, your staff has done a great job. Initially, this permit did come even at a higher allocation, so they have worked closely with the applicant, and I really appreciate all of their time and all of their communication with us, so I do appreciate that. So part of it with the applicant handbook is looking at, is this this increase in the public interest and reasonable and beneficial use? And we're curious about that, since this will be a private golf course that won't benefit much, but then in this constrained watershed where we're expecting all of this growth, is this in the public interest to be increasing pumping here? Next slide. If you do move forward with accepting this permit, here are some additional permit conditions that could be considered to limit the renewal to the historical allocation so that we're not increasing the pumping. The applicant could achieve this by, reducing that irrigation demand. One way is with soil amendments. This is very common on golf courses. Most golf courses do use soil amendments. It improves the turf and also just reduces that irrigation demand. Or reducing that irrigated footprint. The Water Conservation Plan talks about irrigating 78 acres, and I believe that was the initial ask, but then through this application process, it's now up to 94 irrigated acres. So just reducing that footprint could really help there. I was unsure the offset, just the timing of that, should that be tied to this permit so that that offset, that permit is modified first, just to make sure that we aren't having an increase in pumping. The conditions do require water use data to be provided from the applicant. If that could be publicly available, that would be helpful for those of us that are, looking for data and understanding. The Water Conservation Plan is part of this application, and there is some inconsistency with the request and that plan as it was submitted. And then also, I would like to say in the request for additional information from your staff, there was on that second request, the suggestion that there's going to be a 2.5 acre pond that will then be used, that will be augmented with groundwater. And staff recommended that that get decreased to 0.5 acres. And I believe that the applicant is leaving it as a larger pond, so you're gonna have evaporation. And I was unclear of how much of this water will be used to augment a pond. The conditions as written require the flow meter to be checked every 5 years. We would recommend annually based on some work that we're doing with meters in Alachua County. And then finally, that water audit is required every 5 years, I believe, in the current permit, and we would recommend at least an annual. We're out looking at irrigation systems all the time, and we always find leaks, multiple leaks. So just having that check more frequently would be beneficial. Next slide. And just finally, some general comments on the process. It is difficult for interested parties to track permits. So most of your permits are the smaller ones under that 1 MGD threshold. So staff is approving them. St. John's has a notification a system where we get notified of all of consumptive use permits going through that portal. So some type of automatic notification would be helpful. There was a few permits that we just ended up missing that would have been valuable to have been provided some public comment on. So I appreciate your consideration and your time. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wanted to speak on item 12? Okay. Yes, please, David. Any other questions for David? Yes.
I'm sure staff has looked at this closely, but I just have a little bit of, Richard would say, heartburn with this. Trying to understand in this critical area that we're trying to get out of recovery, that we're looking at recreational projects. The offset of 200,000 gallons a day is allocated, but it's not used. And now we're going to put it into use, which is going to affect minimum flow. Groundwater, we're gonna do a lined pond. We're not gonna get any percolation, we're not gonna get any recharge. And then we're gonna pump into that pond additional water. I have a hard time understanding this in this particular area that we're trying to protect. At some point, we have to make a stand and make a start. Conservation of our water. We have necessary things. We have residents that need water. We have growth that's coming. All these things were mentioned, and they're important considerations. This is a small permit. I get it. But like the lady said, a lot of small permits add up. I'm just going to say, as it's written, I have issues with it, Dave. I really do. I wish I could be more comfortable with the area, but 41 and 75. I mean, it's water resource have any comment on the area?
Madam Chair. It is a area that is certainly sensitive. This area is covered by an existing recovery strategy. And so I think that's what David is looking to abide by, is the existing recovery strategy. We still have a lot of work to do in this area. Projects has a lot of work to do. There's still a lot of conservation to be done. But there is an existing recovery strategy that guides us.
Madam Chair. And the recovery strategy is by having offsets, right? I mean, that's part of the strategy, is if there's new development, it has to be offset. If it's new use.
The strategy has guidance, and I defer to the legal in terms of the specifics, but it covers new uses, new permittees, existing permittees. That is laid out, and I'd probably defer to get into the specifics of that, how it's currently crafted in the existing recovery strategy.
Presently, with the present rule and present recovery strategy, an existing use that predates that rule is allowed to, if they come in for a renewal, they're allowed to continue their allocation, but they're limited to a 5-year permit without showing any, even if that existing allocation impacts the MFL water body. If they wish to increase the allocation, they still have to get a 5-year permit, but that increase in allocation, the impact due to just the increase has to be offset. And so that's how that's how this is worked into it. The farm that had the permit that they were retiring, that's considered the offset, but they only have to offset the increase in the allocation. That's also why you have a 5-year permit. So we'll be readdressing this in 5 years. If you'll recall, this rule, our present MFL rule and recovery strategy and everything, is a rule set by DEP. DEP is reconsidering that rule right now. And if you'll notice on BCS 14, condition 21 says that upon that being reenacted, that this permit is subject to modification. So the permit can be modified based upon the new rule and new recovery strategy, and it will also be coming up for renewal in 5 years in any event, where it would be subject to modification based upon that. So that's but anyway, the offsets that we have in place right now, the rule we have in place right now, requires for existing users to offset their increases in allocation, not their existing use.
So is there a strategy or a process in place to offset that increase?
So the rule says offset. It doesn't necessarily constrain how that's being offset. So with offsets would mean that you would have to have some event that would have a positive impact on the MFL water body equal to the negative impact. And so that's how we got to the, you could have a project, you could do lots of things. One of the things that you can do is you can retire an existing permit. And that's what the applicant has chosen to do in this case.
But correct me if I'm wrong, but the offset that they're using is 0.2 million gallons, 200,000 gallons a day. And they're asking for 250,000 gallons a day, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So the difference, the 50,000 gallons of additional water that they're asking for, is there a proposal to offset that amount, 50,000 gallons?
They have to offset the amount that's an increase and has a potential impact. So we ran the model of the 50,000 gallons per day and it doesn't have the potential impact.
Doesn't have the impact, okay. I'm just trying to wrap my head around that part of it.
And if they could offset everything in use, they would get a 20-year permit.
Okay.
They had to offset enough to meet the recovery strategy rules it's written.
That's where the disconnect was the timeline.
And we had reached out to them early on and when we first, I believe when their first discussions of the golf course there, so this was last October. So we've been in discussions with them about their need to develop offsets or some way to get the golf course to meet rule this location.
Okay. And so if they were, Ms. Greco's point, if they were to utilize just the amount of water that they were getting from the original permit, would they be able to get a 20-year permit at that point?
And they would still have to offset their.
They'll have to offset. Okay.
The limitation, if you've got an existing user that wants to continue their existing allocation, if that existing allocation does not offset the MFL, does not impact the MFL water body, they get a 20-year permit like everybody else. If that existing allocation impacts the MFL water body, they're limited to a 5-year duration permit.
Okay.
Madam Chair. The 94 acres in question that's irrigated, how well does that property percolate?
It's well
Got a
drained.
lot of clay or is it a lot of sand? I mean, does it percolate fairly well?
It's a sand ridge. That's some of the need for the higher, their concerns for the higher end of the allocation. The irrigation model uses soil holding capacities for each site, and this is a well-drained soil on the ridges. And with the unknown, without the golf course being in place, we went with the higher end or the most drained of the soil, just so they can have assurance that they can meet their irrigation. And in 5 years, we'll see how it all.
That's part of my thoughts. If it's irrigated, is it percolating or recharging, back through? I mean, we talked about the lined pond, but the lined pond is definitely not going to percolate, but some of that water that's going to be used will definitely percolate back and recharge. So that's one of those things nobody really knows at this point. So just wondering about soil types.
And another thing, like Tom said, it's a 5-year permit, we'll readdress it then, but we're gonna readdress it after multi-millions of dollars have been spent. That's a different animal than what we have before us today.
Well, that's why we include condition 21 is so that if the applicant chooses to spend millions of dollars, they choose to spend it knowing condition 21 is there and it may be readdressed. They also choose to spend it knowing that the permit's going to be up in 5 years. And also remember, this is a DEP rule, not a Swanee River rule. So they're doing that based upon what DEP might do with DEP's rule.
Madam Chair? Can you go back over again? So this is a renewal, right? So was there an allocation or withdrawal already existing? And what was the increase? Is the increase 250,000?
It's close. It's close to it. It was an existing use, but it was a horse area, so it was a small allocation for livestock watering. Yeah, it's maybe 1,200 gallons a day or so. Meets the definition of existing use.
Did that answer your question? Okay. I've got one question, and I kind of look at the development everywhere, but particularly this is kind of my home. So the increase is 50,000, right? That's the difference between the amount that they're getting off of the agricultural permit. So the increase is actually what?
The increase is actually 0.2524. The net increase after the offset would still be the 50,000.
Okay. And I don't know the answer to this, you may have a ballpark, but if, instead of having that, a golf course, if it ended up being, all houses and people using the water plus the irrigation that generally goes with the subdivision, that would seem like there would be more water used if it were developed, significantly with homes and typical use rather than having a golf course. I don't know how you figure that out, but I would think that the development of intensive housing would be a far greater use, plus all the other things that come with multiple families moving into the area, you know, with schools and roads and all that sort of stuff. I know we looked at a solar use in some of our ag land at one time, and I think the consensus was that the impact to the environment and to the neighborhoods was better used as solar than it would be intensive housing. So I'm just kind of trying to balance, okay, how much water would end up being used if we didn't have grass and we just had houses and pavement.
Yes. It would depend on the type of development. If it's zero lot line housing, larger yards with irrigation, built-in irrigation systems. So it would be similar. I mean, golf courses are in recreational areas in general irrigated a little more intensely than a yard irrigation, but there's not all the other housing uses, like you said, that go with that. So I did not run that analysis on the air.
I'm sure. I was just, I'm just sitting here trying to weigh the impact.
That's where, I mean, like I said, we're looking at 94 acres of golf course over 390 acres of property. So I think you'd be comparing 390 acres of home sites compared to a 94 acre.
A bunch of houses and a lot of use.
And the other thing I was concerned about is if you didn't put the golf course there, I mean, we got grass there now. You got percolation there. I know they're not using their water permit today, but that is an ag site. The company that owns it, they're either going to put a golf course there or they're going to put people there.
Mm-hmm.
And reality is a golf course has a lot better percolation than houses and streets. So we could say no to the plans that they have, and then they go and put houses on there, and you're even worse off, not just because of water usage and non-percolation, but also you have everything that goes along with that as far as sewage and septic issues and the whole kit and caboodle that we're struggling with in the whole area. To me, I think the grass, the open area, is a better fit than 98 acres of houses.
Madam Chair, if I may add as well, the applicant does have representatives in the audience today. If the board has any questions relative, or if the applicants want to speak as relative to the efficiency of use, there as well.
Would y'all like to hear from the applicant? Nope. No questions for the applicant? Right, and they have met all the rule as far as the use for the 5-year permit, correct?
Yes.
All right, any other questions?
Madam Chair, based on staff's recommendation, I respect the questions, and a couple of the board members maybe have some apprehension about the permit, but based on board's evaluation and the fact that it's currently being offset as our rules currently stipulate, I make a motion to approve the water permit.
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, like sign.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Madam
Thank
Chair.
you, sir. Thank you for your hard work, David. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm here to present a couple of items regarding the fiscal year 24-25 Florida Department of Environmental Protection awards. One item is for your consideration, and the other one is for informational purposes. First item is agenda item 14 on BCS page 19, and it's regarding the receipt of alternative water supply grant funds. The staff recommendation is to authorize the executive director to enter into agreements with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection to receive alternative water supply funds and to enter into agreements with local cooperative entities to implement the projects for fiscal year 24-25. Some background, in May 2024, the governing board authorized the executive director to recommend and submit 5 project applications to DEP for consideration for the alternative water supply funding. FDEP has allocated $55 million in AWS funding to 14 projects across the state. The total AWS funding awarded to the district includes around $5.7 million for 2 district projects and 1 local cooperative project administered by the district. The district will enter into agreements with DEP to receive funding. Funding for these projects are included in the fiscal year 24-25 budget. On the attached chart, you can see those 3 projects. The first one is the cooperative recharge project we facilitate with GRU. And the other 2 projects are the district projects. They're the Santa Fe Basin land acquisition and the groundwater recharge through surface features. This set aligns with the ones that Warren presented, if you remember back in November 2024, where he explained his choice of projects and karst features he identified in the landscape for recharge. He presented on looking for project choice spots back in looking at the contribution basin in the Santa Fe, Lower Santa Fe and Ichituckney. He was looking for projects that may need land acquisition and other sites where karst features could be improved. These not necessarily needing land acquisition, but maybe some access agreements. I wanted to point out that water made available for the land acquisition is the anticipated benefit after land is acquired and a project is implemented. The staff's primary goal is to identify these specific properties of interest that help meet our recharge goals and then present them to the lands committee and follow those land acquisition steps. So we will coming back with the recommendation for the land acquisition spots and for the specific groundwater recharge projects. So with that, any questions?
Any questions from the board? No. Very thorough. Thank you, ma'am. All right.
Rick, I don't know if you want to let Rick Hutton come up at this moment for.
Rick, would you like to go?
Madam Chair, I was curious how long their project was going to take, what the projection was.
Okay.
Come on.
Talking about our project?
Yeah.
Good morning, Rick Hutton, Gainesville Regional Utilities. And well, first of all, I really wanted to thank you. That's why I'm here. And I did get a good treat this morning to see, some of your interaction with your staff and what a wonderful place it is to work here. And I will say, as a cooperating organization, it's a pleasure working with you all as well. So to answer your question, sir, our groundwater recharge wetland, we are anticipate finishing it by 2027. One of the things that we need to do, and let me back up a little bit so everybody knows what the project is we're talking about. So this is a groundwater recharge wetland. It'll use reclaimed water from GRU's Kanapaha Water Reclamation Facility. The project site is located a little west of Gainesville. It'll use about 3 million gallons per day of water from that Kanapaha plant. The recharge wetland, that wetland portion is really helpful in that it allows us to further treat that water to get the nutrient levels to really low levels, because water quality is also an issue that's very important in the Santa Fe Basin as well. And recharge the aquifer, which will help benefit the lower Santa Fe and Ichituckney MFLs. So the next phase of the project we are getting ready to do is what's called a hydraulic load test. And so what I mean by that is, well, we did a lot of geological investigations of the property before we we bought it to make sure it's an area that will percolate, that's fairly high and dry, but we still don't know, well, what is the percolation rate? And that's really important when we go to design these basins, because if we overestimate it, we might be making our basins too small. If we underestimate it, well, other way around. I guess if we overestimate the percolation rate, we may be making the basin small. If we underestimate it, we may be making them too big. So what we'll be doing is constructing some temporary ponds, and then we'll use actually potable water from GRU system to put water in those ponds and measure how quickly the water percolates. And we'll use that as part of our design process. And so we're getting ready to start that next phase. We should complete that over the summer. And as I mentioned, we anticipate finishing the project in 2027.
Right.
I have one question. You mentioned that it will be a benefit for our MFLs. Do you have any idea how much of a benefit that will help once you get everything working?
Well, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I will say, looking at some of the groundwater models and the sort of the typical what they call influence coefficient in the area, about 70% of that water makes its way, towards Santa Fe, Itchituckney rivers.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, I don't have the exact numbers of how many CFS.
I didn't want to throw you under the bus.
Well, I will say that's, one of the things that, needs to happen too. We're in the process of renewing our consent of use permit through the St. John's Water Management District. And one of the things we'll be looking at that will be part of our permit renewals, well, how much benefit are we getting from that project as well as the other recharge projects that GRU does.
Okay, good deal. All right, any other questions?
So the wetland, whenever it's open in 2027, is that going to be like a recreational area considered for the public, like the other one is there?
It will.
Prairie? Yeah.
Absolutely. And thank you for asking that question. And actually, we're partnering with Alachua County that they will operate it as a public park. So it'll kind of serve a dual purpose of, it'll be a recharge project, but it'll be a public park that will, include nature trails and encourage people to get out and enjoy it.
So it'll be very similar to the one down in Marion County?
Similar
Park they
concept.
have.
So you're talking about the Ocala recharge wetland project. So they have their project there. We have another project known as Sweetwater Wetlands that's located just outside of Gainesville. This will be similar. Our project site is 75 acres. I think the Ocala one is about the same size as our project site. So it'll be fairly similar. It's a site that has a fair amount of trees on it that we're going to try to preserve as much as we can. So it's a little less open, but a little more shaded than some of the other wetlands.
That'd be good. All right, any other questions? Okay, thank you for coming, Rick.
Thank you very much.
All righty.
So with that, I'll read the recommendation again, and it's to authorize the executive director to enter into agreements with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection to receive alternative water supply funds and to enter into agreements with local cooperative entities to implement the projects for fiscal year 24-25.
Make that motion, Madam Chair.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Good luck.
And now the second one, I just want to clarify it. Again, agenda item 15, BCS page 22. It's an informational item only. When this memo was originally written, we believe our executive director would need authorization to convey the DEP funding for Springs grants. But later learned that the DEP will convey the funds directly to those cooperative entities. And so that's why it's an informational item. So, and just, in May 2024, the board authorized the executive director to submit 13 project applications to DEP for considerations for Springs. If DEP has awarded 10 projects and 7 multi-year projects within the district, around $5.4 million in projects were funded. And these, there were 2 projects, one, the Lancet Tract, one for $1.6 million, and the other $3.8 million for the Lake City Recharge Wetland Expansion Project.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Brings the item for business and community service.
Thank you, Tim. I think we're going to stop for a break and 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Let's go 10 minutes. So 10:45, be back here. All right, we will get back to work here.
All right, good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. The Division of Outreach and Operations has 6 items for your consideration today. Items number 16, 17, and 19 are for informational purposes. I'll be presenting item number 18, and items 20 and 21 were approved on consent. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. And before I get to item number 18, I just wanted to also echo some of the words spoken about Lisa. She has been a tremendous mentor to me. I actually have gone to church with her and her family since I was very, very young. And so she was mentoring me long before she was ever officially mentoring me at the Suwannee River Water Management District, and has just stewarded her wisdom to me and been very, very kind and gracious with her time. And so people like that are hard to find, who are willing to stay at an agency and make it a career for that long. And I value her deeply. The district also hosted its land management review team tour last Wednesday, and we had the pleasure of having Mr. Thompson join us, and we're very gracious to him for doing so. Lorna and her team did a phenomenal job showcasing some tracts of land in the northwest region of the district in our goose pasture area, and based off some preliminary numbers, the scores of that area actually were a slight improvement over last year, and so we're always looking to improve the district's land management activities. And the most valuable aspect of that tour, in my opinion, is that we get to showcase properties, but also get to receive feedback from cooperators who are doing similar work, from our leadership, and hear about how they think we can do better and improve. And we're open to hearing that and receptive of that as well. So thank you for your support of the land management team. And I also want to give a special thanks to Troy. He has been very, very busy with working with the media regarding several items that have been brought to the board over the last several months, answering the media, working with the public, having the public come to the office unannounced, and spending time with them out of his day. And as you might imagine, some of those media requests and public requests, they do not occur within the 8 to 5 window of his typical job, and he is always ready to answer and provides time. And when I was thinking about what to say about him, several words came to my mind about how dedicated he is, professional, first class, and for me, trusted. And so I just wanted to give Troy a very special thank you for all the work he does in and outside of this office to maintain relationships with the media and with the public on a variety of issues that he has to have knowledge about. So with that, I will present to you item number 18, which is on OPS page 6. This is the approval of Resolution 2025-04 for the conveyance of the Newberry Wellfield tract owned by the district to the city of Newberry. And I'll mention that we have a representative, Mr. Joe Lovelady from the city of Newberry, here with us today. The district purchased just shy of 100 acres in Alachua County for the purpose of providing a location for a potable well field to the city of Newberry, and this tract has been known as the Newberry Wellfield. The purchase was made through what we call the district's local government assistance program. Early on in 2003, a portion of the well field, just under 40 acres, was conveyed to the city of Newberry and retained a conservation easement. That property is currently known as the Easton Sports Complex. In 2018, the city of Newberry requested that the district convey the remaining 60 acres to assume control of the well field and provide additional passive recreation opportunities to their community. On March 9th, 2021, the Lands Committee approved the conveyance and authorized staff to establish terms on the use of the property. And on April 13th, 2021, the governing board surplused the property to the needs of the district and approved the conveyance. Since that time, the district has finalized the terms of the easement with the city of Newberry, which allows for additional potable wells to supply the city's water supply. Again, was the intended use of the acquisition. Continue passive recreation such as archery and laser tag, as well as the addition of 4 flat fields and lights. The flat fields were included in the city's proposal to the Lands Committee and Governing Board in 2021. Permanent structures and any utilities not associated with the lights are prohibited. This conveyance includes a conservation easement and clause that ownership will revert back to the district should the land become inconsistent with the easement terms. The city has provided a baseline documentation report as required by the easement, and the conveyance is consistent with 373056 Florida statutes. And with that, I will show you a map, Tyler. What you see in the solid, Tyler, if you don't mind blowing it up a little bit, what you see in the solid green area is the property to be conveyed. And so that includes this portion here, along with a driveway portion here. The hatched area is what was previously conveyed in 2003. And with that, I will take any questions.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
is that the total acreage now that is owned by the district, or is that other area there still retained by the district?
Madam Chair. The 99 acres that I referenced earlier in the memorandum is the entirety of what you see shaded in the solid green and in the hatched green. The hatched green is what was conveyed in 2003, and then the solid green with the white outline is what is being proposed for conveyance now, the 60 acres. So this conveyance will include the entirety of the tract that was originally purchased.
It just looks like an odd section of parcel to have been obtained by the district at some point. I don't know how that happened. That was way before my time.
Mine too. I think right now there's quite a bit of development all around that parcel.
Caitlin, what's the little blue square in there?
Madam Chair, the square is a GIS relic of when the parcel data was created. And when I talked to the GIS analyst about it, it's just a relic that carried over. So it's insignificant to the conveyance.
Just something to make me ask a question.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Caitlin?
Make a motion to go with recommendation.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, that concludes our items for OPS, and we look forward to seeing you for a Lands Committee. later this
Okay.
afternoon.
Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Water Resources Division has no items during the board meeting today, but this month you will be hearing from Ms. Susie Hetrick, who's going to present the workshop on the SWIM, or Surface Water Improvement and Management Plan. That will be after this board meeting. Next month, we're looking forward to a workshop on the sturgeon with the USGS researchers to review that proposal in detail. And then we have heard from DEP, and we're coordinating with them. We're anticipating the next rule workshop for the update to the LSFI rule to be this summer. So we'll be working with them to get that scoped out, and we'll give you more information as we have it.
Okay, look forward to it. Thank you. All righty. Good morning.
We have, before I go further, I was remiss to actually introduce Kelly Woolley, who has succeeded Lisa Cheshire in our duties relative to HR. And Kelly has been trained by Lisa for some period of time. So I think that that'll be a very smooth transition. So I want to assure the board that she'll do a great job. Following, she had a great mentor. So she'll do a great job with that. Couple of advise the board on a couple of the meetings that staff have been attending, and myself. Last week, we were able to meet with our local North Florida utility group on Wednesday over in Lake City, and we were asked to come to that meeting, kind of give an update on projects. We had Leroy and Warren in attendance at that meeting to kind of go through some of the projects. myself and Tim and Amy were there as well to answer any questions that we had. And so we did make them aware as some of the funding that you saw and approved earlier today relative to the karst features work that we're looking at and some of the other projects. We informed that utility group relative to that. And that is our local utilities here, currently primarily being led by Suwannee County and Columbia County to that effort. But I think that the message was clear to them, and I think it was well received, that, water supply is important, and making the most of available water resources is critical going forward. And also in attendance, I appreciate Rick Hutton was there by invitation, as well as Jeremy Johnson, who is a director at the Clay County Utility Authority over in Clay County. But both of them were there and were requested by that group, utility group, to help them put together some of the administrative oversight relative to that utility group, because there's a lot of questions in getting a local utility up and running. And so they received some good advice from those two directors as far as what's needed. So anyway, looking forward to continuing working with that group as well. Amy and I also met with the utility group that's based over in St. Johns County, which consists of the Clay County Utility Authority, as I've already mentioned, Jacksonville Electric Authority, St. Johns County, Gainesville Regional Utilities as well. Thank you, Amy. And we had a meeting there to discuss moving ahead with the large recharge project that we've been evaluating over the last couple of years with there. That group it's very favorable in moving that project ahead. JEA has been engaged with the legislature relative to some legislation that's indirectly associated with that project as far as the elimination of surface water discharge from a reclaimed water perspective and eliminating that. So the intent is that we are moving forward with that project and developing that project. Later this year, we're going to be bringing a presentation to this board in more detail of what that project would entail and kind of the timelines and associated costs of that project. So looking forward to that. Somewhat associated with that, and I'm at a distance of Robin's throwing arm, but I want to take we want to set up, we've been invited, and I want to set up a tour over at the Clay County Utility Authority on their reuse system there. They have gone really above and beyond trying to conserve water use and reuse the resource there. And they'd like for our board to come over and take a look at that. Still working out the details on when that might be. Don't know if it'll be associated following a board meeting as a field tour or if it'll be a separate event as well going forward with that. But that's just some of the things that we've been involved with there. Tyler Winburn is still in Tallahassee. Session is continuing. Anticipated end date is May 2nd for sine die. Confirmations for Mr. Smith, Mr. Thompson, and also Mr. Wheeler. Their first stop is set up on Thursday for the first committee meeting. There'll be another committee meeting for their approval and confirmation with ethics and elections, and then it'll go to full Senate for confirmation. And they are in company with some of the other board members from the other water management districts with that. Tyler will be putting together their weekly reports as far as bill action and legislation that's moving forward and budget discussions, which is where they've moved into now. And so you can anticipate receiving that on a weekly basis from him as far as updates go with it. Something else you should have in your stack of papers there, your CARES invitation. That'll be on the 1st of May out at the Research Center. Appreciate all who would care to attend that with it. And with that, there actually will be a tour. There's going to be a local community and legislative tour with that event. Prior to that event occurring, it'll be at 4 o'clock. The tour will be a tour similar to what we did with our board meeting last month, be on the trolley tour, and then come back and for the main event beginning at 6 o'clock. So I hope to see all of you there with it. Madam Chair, that's my announcements. We do have a workshop. Susie has a presentation on our Coastal River Swim Plan with it. We also have an audit committee meeting. And then we also have a lands committee meeting. I'll be happy to entertain any questions the board may have.
Chair, I'd like to make a comment. I just want to thank staff and especially Tyler. I was in Tallahassee a couple of weeks ago. He walked me all over the Capitol to meet different people to work on the Live Oak flood mitigation plan. And he was a big help, a real big help. Got me in touch with a lot of the people I needed.
He's a good person to know up there. It's an easy place to get lost if you're not familiar with it.
You are correct, Madam Chair.
Hugh, a couple of questions on the utilities group. You said they had invited some utility groups over, Clay and stuff. Are they getting the proper direction, or the word I'm hearing locally is it's kind of governmental overload? Are they going to put board members that have utility backgrounds and things like that? How's the direction look for that group?
That would be my hope, Mr. Charles, Madam Chair, for responding. That would be my hope. Part of the meeting, I think the larger part of the meeting last week was dedicated. They're trying to find an administrator and hire an administrator right now.
Conversations, and they just don't have the applicants they need.
Yes, sir. That's a challenge.
If they reach out to GRU or some of these groups, you could give them some information on where they might look. Director for sure, but even board members.
On there that
especially
have
if you
relevant
want
experience with that.
To grow into a regional group, it's going to have more input than, I get the two main players right now are Columbia and Swanee.
Right.
But if we want
They're gonna need to grow it.
pull in these other, and you need to at least have independent type board members that represent all. Then, did we hear anything more on the Hill proposal in the last meeting, the counter?
For the, Madam Chair, for the Hill property there? Yes, sir. It was, that item, we, based upon board input at last month's meeting, staff revised the property offer to the county. We sent that over to the county. It was scheduled to be on their agenda for discussion last week, but their meeting went rather lengthy, and they tabled the discussion on that topic, and that was never discussed. They decided to bring it up at next week's meeting with it going forward.
They had some Fort White issues.
Yes, sir.
And lastly, when the DEP rule updates come out, I'd like to get a notification on that. And then I'd like to see district work along with these rules on these restricted areas and see if we can't come up with some boundaries of really critical areas that we don't need extra withdrawal in. Because eventually, we're going to come to the point where we have to make some major moves. I would like to think we could start with baby steps and avoiding the issuance of more gallons withdrawal that we have to make up somehow.
Madam Chair, Mr. Charles, just for point of clarification, when you say the DEP rule, are you speaking about the Lower Santa Fe and Ichetucknee?
Yes.
MFL and Prevention Recovery Strategy? Okay, I want to.
Just to keep up with population growth is challenging.
Yes, sir. It is.
If we get a chance, and maybe when we're looking at permit renewals, and we got X amount of gallons per day not being used on these permits, that we reduce the allocations. Because those gallons not used, and we're taking them in exchange for gallons used, we're still minus 200,000 gallons or whatever that allocation is. If it's allocated, but it's not being used, it's still in the aquifer. So if we take something that's allocated and put it into use, where was the gain? I mean, that's not an offset. So I'd like some guidelines that we can go by, especially in the Ichetucknee area. I mean, it's a beautiful spot, and it needs protection. And I think Water Resources would agree that they could probably use some help. So let's see if we can't get permitting and Water Resources working together, and let's come up with an area that's sacred. You know, this area needs help. We can't continue withdrawing.
Madam Chair, what I would speak to on that relative to the DEP rule, Mr. Charles, is that one, DEP has stepped up, particularly in recent light, and relative to the utility project, recharge project that I spoke about earlier. From the timing of moving that rule forward, the latest that we have received is that they are looking to track that into the 26th legislative session, which means if you back out of that session date, it means that there's a lot of activity that's going to have to occur this year moving forward. And workshops are part of that. And to that end, they've stepped up the engagement with our staff and St. John's relative to weekly meetings to try to meet those timelines going forward. And certainly, this board will be made aware, apprised of those workshops, and have a workshop for the board itself relative to what that rule will contain as it is developed. The new rule, as currently proposed anyway, does speak to actual water use, not just allocation for that. And the new rule, as currently stated, makes it, I'm not going to say penalizes, but it utilizes the water use for a period of time, period of record, and what your actual use was. And the impact of that use is what will have to be addressed. So from an applicant standpoint, it bears in mind to be as efficient with that use as possible, and that information is correct, because whatever impact there is from that use in some form or fashion, you're going to have to do an offset for that rather than your allocation itself. Whereas the current rule that we're under right now, as was pointed out earlier today, is based upon allocation with there. I get your point relative to the moving ahead with trying to develop and refine. The other thing that we can do, this board can do, is even under the current rule as it is right now, the current rule the board can set priorities for water use across the district based upon whatever permit is coming in and what that actual use is associated with from a use group, whether it's industrial, recreational, agriculture. This board can set priorities for how that water use is allocated out to those water users. Council, is that correct?
Yes, sir, and I think the frustrating part about our system is that what happens is people apply for permits, they come up, and then at that point, people want to say, well, gosh, this doesn't seem right, it doesn't seem fair. When they apply for the permit and it comes to you, your only job is to apply the criteria that are set out in our written rules to this application. It doesn't lend itself to these larger concepts of this just doesn't seem right. Where you do have the authority to incorporate some of those concepts is in your rules and how you, and the rules that you enact and all of that. And that's where I think you can get into some of this, where certain uses in certain areas you would consider to be more favorable uses, and certain uses in other areas would be not favorable uses. But that's got to happen before the application is filed. That's got to happen in your rules. Because remember, if I own a piece of property, I have a property right to use the water subject to reasonable restrictions as set out in our rules. So that's the time, just like the executive director said, that's the time that for this board to come up with those policy decisions and put them into rule form.
Dr. Brown, can you take a look at the boundaries or some type of suggestions for rules that might help with the MFLs and present that to us?
Madam Chair? Yes, I can work with our regulatory folks to put together what our current rules say and what other rules have been applied.
Good. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Hugh?
All right.
All right. Thank you, Hugh. Then I think that concludes our business. So is there a motion to adjourn our board meeting?
Make that motion, Madam Chair.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carried. At this time, I think, where's Pam? Pam, would you like to go ahead and let's do our audit committee? Are you prepared to do that now? And I think we have some auditors that probably would like to get that part done.
Oh, it's a pop test.
I messed up, didn't I? Ah, dear.
Be careful what you wish for.
Mm-hmm.
I am so glad that they printed this out.
Thank you, ma'am.
Paper.
You already have this in your packet, but just
Simulating my phone.
All right, I'm going to then go ahead and open our Swine River Water Management District Audit Committee meeting, and it is April 8th, 2025, and we will call this committee meeting to order. Could we possibly do a roll call? Here?
Here.
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 Thank you, ma'am. At this time, before we get cranked up too much, we'll do our public comment period. If there's anyone that would like to do public comment, now's the time. There being none, we'll close public comment and go straight into our discussion items. Hi, Ms. Pam.
Oh, good morning, Madam Chair and members of the Audit Committee and Board. Before I get started, I also too wanted to recognize my appreciation to Lisa Cheshire. HR as well as finance is all about compliance and auditing, being audited, and people looking over your shoulder and making sure we're doing things right. And I will tell you that Lisa is her ethical standards are right up there, and I have appreciated what she has brought to the table. Sometimes it's very thankless and it's very difficult to maneuver some situations, and she has done it with class, strength, a wealth of knowledge, and she's been very fair. And I too wanted to tell you how much she has meant to me as the CFO here. So, I do have two comments for you, two items for you. The first is our fiscal year 2023-24 financial audit, and I'm proud to say yet again we have had no findings. And again, it's because of the group that we have working with us here, the direction of the leadership as well as the staff. And here to present our audit is Brad Huff. So with Reliant, who is also doing business as Powell Jones.
We, like you said, my name is Brad Huff. We really appreciate the opportunity to work with you all again. So yeah, before you the audit, and so I'll be going through that if you guys want to follow along. I start on page 6. And so this is our independent auditor's report. It says this audit was conducted in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards and governmental auditing standards, and the goal of an audit is to obtain an unmodified or clean opinion. It speaks less to the performance of the district and more to the quality of the records being kept by the finance department. This means that the audit, if you get the clean opinion, it means that the auditors believe that the information in the report is reliable as a basis for decision making. As you see in paragraph 2, the district did in fact receive an unmodified opinion for this report. In addition, like Pam stated, that there were no findings, and we'll discuss that later. The main items in your report included are the MD&A, or the management discussion analysis section, the basic financial statements, the notes to those financial statements, the schedule of expenditures of federal awards and state financial assistance, and the reports on internal controls over both reporting and compliance with the requirements of major programs. If you go to page 9, this is the management's discussion analysis. It's a required section that is important because it allows management the opportunity to give context to the information within the financial statements, which management took great care to provide in the current year. I'll encourage you to read this, but for the sake of time, we're going to move on to the basic financial statements, which are on page 17. So governmental accounting standards require reporting of financial information in 2 ways. One is long-term profitability, and the other one is more short-term and cash management. It's generally more important for boards to look at the short-term cash management way, but for your sake, on pages 17 and 18, this is more the long-term profitability way to present them. But we'll go to page 19 to kind of focus on the short-term cash management. On page 19 is what we call a balance sheet. This shows each major fund the district owns, what each major fund, what it owns, what you owe, and the net of those amounts, which is called your fund balance. District maintains 5 major funds, which are presented below. One major of an entity's health that we like to point out is if there were no change in operational spending of the district, how long would it take for the unassigned fund balance, that's that $13 million down at the bottom of your general fund, to run out? In this case, the general fund's unassigned amount is the $13.4 million at the bottom of the page on the left. And the spending was about $7.8 million, which means that you'd have between 20 and 21 months of reserves if there were no income brought in the general fund. The minimum that the GFOA or the government, the GFOA would recommend is 2 months. So obviously you will outpace that. And one thing we like to point out is if you look at your cash that's not necessarily invested in high interest bearing things, it's relatively low. So you're not just sitting on a bunch of cash. There is actually money earning money for you. If you go to page 20, all right, this is your statement of revenues and expenses and changes in fund balance. It's like an income statement. It shows what was earned and spent during the year. As you can see, overall, the district earned $34.8 million in income, most from intergovernmental revenues such as appropriations and federal state grants, and spent about $31.1 million. The majority of that was spent on projects, for a net increase of about $3.6 million. Because a lot of the intergovernmental revenues are reimbursements for project expenditures, the main drivers in the increase were, one, the adjustment in the fair market value of the SPE account, which were accounted for about $1 million of the increase. The additional interest income from the usage of the ICS account when you transferred money to that. It's about 1.4 million in interest earned there. And then the ad valorem taxes, which are received by the district. If you go to page 36, we'll take a look at your capital assets. Okay, this chart on page 36. In the current year, capital assets stayed reasonably close to last year overall. The accumulated depreciation, which it's an estimate of how to recognize the expense of an object over its useful life, increased by about 85,000. Using accumulated depreciation as a measure for the useful life left on your capital assets as a whole, though imperfect, overall you have about 33% of your useful life remaining. Go to the next page on 37. The thing we'd like to point out is your long-term debt. Long-term debt here is made up of compensated absences, the FRS pension liability, the OPEB liabilities, and subscription and lease liabilities. The total amount, as you can see, was about 6.7 million. This showed a net reduction in the current year of about 165,000. However, as in years past, there were no more recognizable forms of long-term debt, such as bonds or notes payable. Go to page 53. We'll look at the budget versus actual. Okay. Governmental accounting standards require the inclusion of a budget versus actual for governmental funds. And as you can see on the following pages, that's 53 through 57, all the spending categories were within budget. And you can actually read more about that more in detail on pages 13 and 14 of your management discussion and analysis. Going to page 67. This right here is 67 through 69, I believe. It's the schedule of your expenditures of federal awards and state financial assistance. For the year under audit, federal spending was about 4.4 million, and state spending was about 17 million, both of which resulted in a single audit. And a single audit tests the compliance of the major projects and programs with the related federal and state requirements. So for the results of those, you can go to page 81. On page 81, this right here is a report that speaks to the federal programs that were tested. So let's see, this year the major programs were the FEMA Disaster Relief and Cooperating Technical Partners Awards. And as stated in this letter on page 81 through 83, the district complied in all material respects with the federal requirements. And so, but then also on page 84, which is another letter we have here, this is for the state single audit, all right? So the level of state spending also triggered a state single audit. This year, there were 3 major state projects, the land acquisition projects, operational expenses, and the alternative water supply projects. These are all listed on page 88 if you're looking at that. As stated below in this letter, we believe the district complied with all requirements in all material specs for these projects as well, so that there were no findings, and we believe that based on the testing we did, that you complied in all material respects with the requirements that are on you. If you go back to page 79, in addition to audit of the financial numbers, we also take a look at internal controls just to see. And so below is our report on what we had no findings, but what we found when we looked at the internal controls, and that there were no current related findings with regard to that. We feel like the internal controls that we see are very very solid, and they're operating effectively. Go to page 89. We'll wrap this up really quickly. This is your management letter. It's required by the state, and basically it states that there were no current year findings, so you can read through that if you would like. And then on page 93, last report that we have here, the states, to our knowledge, the district complied in all material respects with the Florida statute related to the investment of public funds. And that's that report. And so again, we really appreciate the opportunity to work with you all again this year. Pam, Kristen, and the rest of the team did a fantastic job of getting us everything we needed in a timely manner. And it appears that they do a very good job with the controls that are in place and everything. So again, we appreciate the opportunity to work with you all again.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for our auditor?
I'll just say you went through that a lot faster than I did.
Sorry, man. I can take it on, we can read a little bit more, but.
I'll just say, I've been on this committee for a couple of years, and estimate to the work that is being done in the district here. These are very boring reports. It's exactly what you want. You want no findings, nothing of consequence, and everything looks like it's all checking out. So great work.
Thank you. So the staff recommendation is to accept fiscal year 2023-24 financial audit report from Powell Jones CPA.
Motion to approve.
Second.
The motion is second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair.
Ma'am, I'm not a member of the audit committee, but I concur with Mr. Lloyd's comments that it's exceptional work for you and your team to have a audit with no findings. I've heard that a couple of times since I've been on this board, so good work. Keep it up.
And we're glad we have a new member helping out in our financial department, which seems like it'll be a big help. And, but thank you, Pam, for you and your staff.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I certainly could not do it without the team. And I really asked them to come here because I really wanted them to be recognized for the hard work that they put in. And with us being one down, we're really glad.
Madam Chair, if I may,
Yes, sir.
I would, and I'm glad, Pam, I'm glad you pointed that out, because I did want to ask the committee if it was okay. Pam, if you don't mind having our team stand up and be recognized for the work that they do. Can you introduce each one of them, Pam? I mean, I know Talisha was introduced this morning, but
You met Talisha Solomon, and Kayla Valdez is next, and she's a financial specialist with us, and then Kristen Thompson, who I'm grooming.
Great job, guys. Wonderful report card.
Pam only has about 4 more years, which it says, so.
No.
Madam Chair, if I could, publicly want to thank Pam for her leadership and her staff for just the excellence and the professionalism in which they do their job. And, you know, the rest of the district staff for following behind and, you know, following the procedures that finance sets in place. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Jim, because really we could not do it if we didn't have the leadership and the staff to follow, you know. It starts at the top.
I'll tell you what, this great report card, I know it's tough. It's just tough to make, and especially in government, it is even harder to make sure you get all the T's crossed and the I's dotted, and y'all do an excellent job. And thank you.
So my second item is to talk to you about the revised Inspector General fiscal year 2024-25 internal audit work plan. Back on August 13th of 2024, the audit committee accepted the Inspector General's 25 audit plan and the 3-year internal plan from Law Red, Crona, and Monroe. I'm just going to call them Law Red. The plans were then approved by the governing board in September of 2024. So one of the items on the Inspector General's activities for this fiscal year was to follow up on the Office of Program Policy Analysis and Governmental Accountability audit, which is called OPAGA. That is actually an audit that's still going on under the permit program. And so since that has not completed, there's no way that they can do a follow-up audit on it. So in light of that, the Inspector General is wanting to substitute one of your other items that you had on the 3-year work plan. So they were suggesting that we substitute the audit of the revenue and receipts that were scheduled in 2027. They feel like that they could start that part, focus on timber revenues risk analysis. And then they'd move some of that into the next fiscal year as well. So what they have done is, and then they will submit you a new 3-year work plan when they come in August, if that's okay. So what we're doing then is, and currently the Inspector General has 2 audits underway right now. It's the land acquisition audit, as well as the follow-up on the prior internal audits from the cybersecurity, which that only had 4 observations, and my understanding is all those observations have been dealt with and have been addressed. So those findings or those reports will come back to you in August as well.
Okay.
So the recommendation is for you to accept the revised Inspector General fiscal year 2024-2025 internal audit work plan from Lawred, Crona, and Monroe.
Any questions on this one? All right, is there a motion?
So move.
You got a question? Okay.
Motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carried.
Thank you. And also I want to inform you that we received word, was it last week or the week before, that the Auditor General from the state, they come every 3 years. They will be here week after next. Actually, they've already started their audit. So it's an operational audit that digs into all of our procedures, and it's a big audit as well. So we're being audited and audited and audited.
One follow, it doesn't even follow one another. It just piles up on top of one another, doesn't it? And when are they going to get here?
They're coming the 21st.
21st.
On site, but they've already started.
Okay.
So,
Is that when you scheduled vacation?
well, mine's the end of May and the 1st of June. I'll be gone 2 weeks.
Madam Chair, as a point of procedure, did we take action on them accepting the 23-24 audit? Did we vote on that?
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Payne.
Madam Chair, if I may suggest, certainly the board's pleasure with that, but before moving into the Coastal River Swim Plan review, if we wanted to move ahead with the Lands Committee, we actually have some of our cooperators here in respect of their time going forward, but certainly.
All right, let's adjourn our audit committee. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Make that motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carried. All right, so we want to go ahead and do
Lands Committee.
Okay, and that
Yes.
you in charge.
All right, I'm going to call this meeting of the Lands Committee to order. Ms. Robin, would you please do the roll call?
Mr. Schwab?
Here.
Mr. Keith?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Sessions?
Here.
Mr. Thompson?
Here.
Mr. Wheeler? Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. We're going to move into public comments. Shane Wellendorf, would you like to come and address the meeting?
Morning again.
Morning.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak on the Woodland, Avalon Woodland Ravines Conservation Easement Project. We are coming to you on this conservation easement, which is a 5,495 acre conservation easement in Jefferson County, just north of Lamont, along Salt Road. Our interest is to work with the Water Management District and complete an application for Springs funding. We would like to get funding through the Springs grant process to be able to match dollars that we've already received with the Florida Forest Service for the acquisition costs. So Toll Timbers has worked with the Florida Forest Service. We submitted an application last year for a grant with the Forest Legacy Program, and we received that funding. It's $4.74 million that can go towards the acquisition costs. I've submitted a letter of support from the Florida Forest Service outlining those dollars as part of the public packet. And in addition to those acquisition dollars, there's also funding available for the due diligence costs as well for this. The Forest Legacy funding and our Toll Timbers interest in this project are for a variety of reasons. I think mainly it's got excellent water resource protections. It's part of the focal priority area for the Wasissa Springs Basin Management Action Plan. It's got great groundwater recharge right there. In addition to that, it's got about 60% of the property that's in isolated forested wetlands that are intact and in good shape, and it's got nearly 6 miles of streams running through it. So not only does it provide good groundwater recharge, but it also has great surface water protections. In addition to that, it's got over 2,000 acres of pine silviculture that are being used for timber production, which is important for Jefferson County, of course. In addition to working with the Florida Forest Service to obtain the Forest Legacy funding, Toll Timbers is also very much interested in serving as the conservation easement monitor and steward for this conservation easement. Conservation easements are one of the things that Toll Timbers does, and we do well. We're an accredited land trust, so we have a series of standards and procedures that we follow to maintain our accreditation in and around monitoring. And you know, in addition to monitoring, you know, we pride ourselves on working very closely with our conservation easement landowners to help with restoration as well. So we're very much interested in your support in the Springs funding as a match to our Forest Legacy funding. And I appreciate your support this morning. Thank you.
Any questions on the easement?
Yeah, I just got one. I'm a little bit familiar with the Avalon tract. And I have no idea how much acreage they own there. Does this encompass that whole tract, or is it just a carve-out portion of it?
Yeah. So the entire property is 8,900 acres. So this would be a subset of that. It would be about the eastern 2/3 of this. There's a Duke railroad right-of-way that splits this property in half, so it would be the eastern portion of this. The way that it was set up with our application with Forest Legacy was 2 phases, essentially. Our hopes that we can complete the first phase on this 5,400 acres and then eventually move over to the remaining acres on the western side.
I think there might,
which brings,
I think there might be a little bit of confusion. This isn't the same. The Avalon Plantation spun this tract off. There's a different landowner today, right?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chairman, for that clarification. So this is owned by Conservation Resources, which is a conservation timber management organization. They purchased it in 2021 from the Avalon family, but it was under ownership by the Turner family for many, many years.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So going forward, just so I'm clear on this, is the Avalon had some pine straw production on it. So I think they still do. I'm not involved with that, but if under our conservation easement, is that preclude the landowner from doing pine straw production? Do you know? Does not.
Yeah, I don't remember there being a provision in there.
Okay. It was just curiosity on my part.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Thompson, just as a point of reference on there, those terms within the conservation easement, those are actually negotiated per se, whenever the easement is being developed, and for the valuation of the easement as well.
Any other questions for Shane? Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments. Ms. Porter, I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
All right, Mr. Chair, thank you very much. So Shane did a really good job teeing this up. I actually won't probably even read much of the memo because he explained much of this already, and we'll talk money and then move to maps and address whatever questions that y'all have. So this is the Avalon Woodlands Ravine Conservation Easement in Jefferson County, as was mentioned. And the Forest Legacy Program through the Florida Forest Service, as Shane mentioned, is covering 75% of the project cost. And the the funds left for Springs would be 25%, or as you see here, $1.2 million. And again, I think what's important to remember is this is being brought to the Lands Committee because of our lands acquisition procedures, but this is funded, this is being sought for funding directly from DEP for Springs funding. This would not be any dollars expended by the district itself. So I just want to make that clarification. There's some information about the property itself that are within your memo, but like I said, I think Shane already did a pretty phenomenal job of addressing much of the water resource value of that area. And we can look at maps that also demonstrate the water resource values of the area. This is an outline of the tract itself in Jefferson County. 5,495 acres listed here. Tyler, if we can go to the next one, this shows the surface water protection of the property. You've got several creeks and tributaries that run through there. The first one to the north is known as Bugs Creek that comes through here. You've got Dixie Branch off to the east, and then you've got Beasley Creek down on the south end. And so it's a relatively, has relatively good surface water protection. Tyler, if we'll go to the next map. As Shane mentioned, it is in the Wasissa Spring Shed and offers springs protection. If you go on down, also offers floodplain protection, as you can see indicated in the red and in the purple. And then also from the LiDAR, you can see what the elevation is relative to the areas in and around it.
Is that the Wasissa to the south of it there?
That's Osceola.
Osceola?
And with that, staff recommends that the Lands Committee authorize the district to provide this project to the Florida Department of Environmental Protection for Springs funding for amount not to exceed $1,240,000.
So Caitlin, what does that do? The $900 an acre, is that half the value of the land? Is it, what is that?
I'll have to, Shane might be better to answer that question. I'd have to have the appraisal right in front of me. I'm not
Shane,
sure.
do you know that off the top of your head?
It's about 30% diminution of value. I don't remember the exact number.
About 30%, okay.
Approximately.
Mr. Chair, that's consistent with the percentage for easements that we offer as well. 25.
I make that motion that we make the recommendation to the full board for approval.
Have a second? I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on the matter? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Chair, if you are willing, we have Jason Furry with Suwannee County here for the last item on the agenda. I think he's got a time commitment. If you would be willing to move up the interlocal agreement item above the surplus.
Sure. Yeah, well, I'd be more than happy to do that.
Okay, Tyler, thank you. The next item for your consideration today is to authorize the district to begin negotiations with Suwannee County for the conveyance of Suwannee Spring Park, Falmouth Spring Park, and Telford Spring Park to Suwannee County. In 2024, the district began discussions with Suwannee County regarding a potential conveyance of the 3 parks that you see mentioned here, which are all located in Suwannee County. These parks are considered by the district as featured sites, and they receive a significant amount of public use. The sites contain infrastructure such as paved entrances, parking lots, picnic tables, boardwalks, kiosks, and portalets. The district supports usually a passive recreation approach on its lands, as you've likely seen on district land management tours and spending time out on district lands. These sites, which are developed and heavily used, are more consistent with the goals of the county. An estimated $35,000 would be saved per year in management expenses by conveying the properties to the counties. The tracts consist altogether of about 31 acres, which would be conveyed. Only the property necessary to operate the parks would be conveyed. So the larger tracts surrounding those very high-intensity public use areas would be maintained by the districts for all the reasons that we like: floodplain ownership, timber management, natural resource conservation. The properties would be conveyed with a restrictive deed that requires the land to be maintained for public access and a reverter if such land use changes, that the property would be returned to the district. I'll also note that the Telford Spring Park, which was acquired with Springs funding from DEP, as you see listed here, would contain a conservation easement subject to the terms of DEP. But in reaching out to them, they, again, subject to the terms of the CE, they are supportive of this conveyance. If the parcels are approved for conveyance, the district will begin negotiations with the interlocal agreement, including a management plan and any special conditions, and final conveyance is subject to the governing board approval. And with that, we can look at maps associated with where these properties are located. The first is Swanee Spring Park, which you see here. This would be approximately 14.34 acres in Swanee County along the Swanee River. However, if we can go to the next. These are the triage maps, which are included in your packet. Tyler, okay, good. The next is Falmouth Spring Park. This is off of Highway 90. It's 9.28 acres there. And again, we would retain the larger tract surrounding it. And then the last would be Telford Spring Park in the White Hatch. And we would retain the larger tract acreage around it. And this tract specifically, I also want to note, it's not highlighted in white, but the road there is currently being maintained by the county, and any ownership that the district had of the road, we would seek to convey to the county too, given their current maintenance operations on that road that connects down to the boat ramp. And with that, I will take questions from the board,
Mr. Chair.
the Lands Committee.
Caitlin, if we convey these properties to the county, which I understand is very beneficial to the district, not having to maintain them and keep upkeep and so forth. But do we still tout them as featured parks in our brochures and stuff, or would we take them out?
Mr. Chair. That's subject to feedback from the Lands Committee or from the board. Currently, our district lands web map primarily focuses on lands that the district currently owns, just to avoid any confusion about how those recreation activities are maintained and how they're supported, as well as access. Certainly, we couldn't give access to things we don't own without an agreement. But I will say that Swanee County does a good job promoting its natural resources as part of their economic development and tourism efforts, and would look for them to support these properties in an equal or better way than the district currently does.
Any other discussion? So what's the pleasure of the committee?
Make a motion. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. We'll keep the board abreast of the Lands Committee abreast of those activities, and certainly if it moves forward, we'll take it to the larger board for final conveyance. Thank you, Jason, for being here. All right, the last item I have for the Lands Committee's consideration today is to declare surplus a lot within the district's Turkey Island tract consisting of 0.34 acres located in Levy County. In December of 2024, the district received a request from an adjacent landowner to surplus a piece of real property owned by the district and located in Levy County, indicated by the parcel number you see listed. The parcel is located within the district's Turkey Island tract and consists of 0.34 acres. The parcel is isolated from the larger district's tract and has no adjacency to district lands. It is also located within a residential neighborhood. The Turkey Island tract was purchased on December 10th, 1997, using Save Our River funds for $4,250. Due to its natural community type, small acreage, proximity to residential areas, and isolation from other tracts, the parcel is not actively being managed. It was reviewed by the Land Acquisition and Surplus team and formally recommended on December 12th, 2024. In accordance with district procedures, a site visit was performed in February. If approved for surplus, an appraisal will be conducted on the parcel to determine the value. If the parcel is valued at less than $25,000, the district may offer the property to adjacent landowners pursuant to the statute 373-089. If the property is valued at greater than $25,000, the property will be offered to the general public. Current procedure requires an appraisal be provided upon request for surplus of undeclared lands. However, staff requests the Lands Committee approve the surplus and authorize sale to adjacent landowners contingent on appraised value. Pursuant to statute, all sales, as y'all may know, because we've done several of these in the past few months, shall be no less than the appraised value that's dictated in the statute, not negotiable. Sales will also include the cost for the appraisals, the legal, and any other closing cost to the buyer. The property must be noticed and offered via sealed bid for the land value plus all estimated closing costs for the transaction, and require execution of a purchase agreement to receive the bid award. All transactions are subject to final board approval. In accordance with Florida Constitution and the statute, the board may surplus the property that's no longer needed for conservation purposes by 2/3 vote. That would happen once we brought it back to the board, not to the Lands Committee. The surplus would include deed restrictions to prohibit all future development, including structures, wells, and septic. If approved, the surplus will be noticed on the district's website, and we can look at maps. So the property you see in white is the property for discussion today. The property in yellow is the adjacent landowner that requested the surplus. Again, pursuant to the statute, the property would have to be noticed to all adjacent landowners, which there are several here. If you want to go on down, Tyler, to the other maps. This is the surface water map, which is outside of the surface water protection area. This is the, you'll have to scroll down, springs protection map, which is not located in a springs protection area. And then this is the floodplain map. And the LiDAR.
So what's the pleasure of the committee? Any questions for Kayla?
This lot surplus will come with conservation restriction.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
The surplus of this lot would include any, it would restrict future development of any kind, structures, wells, and septic.
Motion to proceed.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on it? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? Thank you, Ms. Caitlin. Any announcements?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you for your support of those items. Announcement for you to be aware of. Mary's team is going to bring a list of Springs projects back to the larger board. Just like we approved the ones from last year, you're going to see the list to submit in the upcoming year. Avalon, based on your approval today, will be taken. There is also going to be an item for a pot of money for land acquisition based off of the 5-year land acquisition map that y'all have previously approved. This is not a parcel specific project. This is a DEP. We would like a chunk of money to purchase and pursue projects for water resource development, water supply, access, and management concerns. So again, all of those specific projects would come back through the Lands Committee once they're identified, but that big chunk of money, you'll see it's got a $20 million price tag, would be submitted as part of Springs. And that is because the district's coffers for land acquisition are running dry. So we're going to need some support for the state to be able to continue land acquisition, again, to support the MFLs, to support smart land management, and to support access.
Any other things?
No, Mr. Chair, that's all the items I have for the Lands Committee. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second. All in favor, say aye. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, the last item that we have is our swim plan review.
Okey-dokey. Do we need to take a break, Robin? Okay. How long is the swim plan? 30 minutes? Is that going to push us out? Oh, well, it should be fine. Okay. All right. Well, let's just go right on ahead into our workshop. Thank you. Do we need a call to order or anything on a workshop? Okay. We're good to go.
Okay. Technically, good morning still, Madam Chair, members of the board.
Good morning.
Today, for your workshop topic, I will present the district's Coastal Rivers 2025 Surface Water Improvement and Management Plan, which updates and streamlines the previously approved swim plan. This presentation will serve as the public workshop component for the plan update as required by statute and rule. I'll begin by going over some of the basics for folks who are not familiar with swim plans, and then I'll walk through some of the information we've included in this plan update, lay out next steps in our process, and show where to find the plan online. First, the SWIM plan acronym stands for Surface Water Improvement and Management. SWIM plans are documents that guide our work toward improving the district's priority water bodies. The SWIM plan summarizes what we know about a water body related to its past and present conditions and outlines strategies and specific projects that improvement and protection of the water bodies. The district has two swim plans, one for the Swanee River Basin, which was updated and approved in 2024, and one for the coastal rivers, which is the one we're discussing today. The legislative basis for swim plans comes from the 1987 SWIM Act, which directed the water management districts to identify priority water bodies and develop plans for improving and managing them. Florida Administrative Code 62-43.035 specifically outlines the elements a swim plan will contain. All of them are listed on this and the next slide, but I will just briefly say these include a description of the system, hydrology, and conditions, a description of land uses, strategies for restoring and protecting water quality standards, a list of restoration projects, and estimates for funding needed to carry out the projects. So the Coastal Rivers Swim Plan includes the Osceola, Wassissa, Econfina, Ben Holloway, Steinhatchee, and Waukesasa rivers. The swim plan area is shown on this map, and it highlights the 6 priority water bodies and their contributing basins. These water bodies were prioritized for swim planning by the district beginning in the 1980s, and the restoration and protection needs for each priority water body are centered on the concepts of protecting flows and water quality. Now, the plan goes into a good bit of detail about the district's work monitoring and collecting water quality and flow data in each of the 6 rivers and their associated springs. The map on this slide shows the 18 surface water quality monitoring stations that are referenced in this swim plan. The plan summarizes current status and trends for nitrate, total nitrogen, and total phosphorus for each of these stations shown on the map. Current land use within the swim plan area is also described in the plan. Within the Coastal Rivers Plan area, wetlands, shown in dark green on this map, and silviculture, shown in the lighter shade of green, are the dominant land use categories. Point and non-point pollution sources are identified within the plan, citing information from DEP, TMDL, and BMAP reports, and maps and lists of existing permitted stormwater and wastewater facilities. Point sources identified in the plan include permitted stormwater facilities shown on the map on your left, and wastewater facilities permitted, which are shown on the map on the right. Non-point sources are also described in the plan based on the most recent DEP BMAP for the Wassissa Basin. The swim plan addresses water quantity for the priority water bodies by summarizing findings in the current work related to the district's water supply assessment, water supply plans, and minimum flows and minimum levels. The map on this slide shows the most recent MFL assessment results cited in the district's 2024 Western Water Supply Plan. Constraints identified in the Western Water Supply Plan area are shown in yellow on this map. So after laying out all of this information in the swim plan, we list strategies for restoration and protection of the 6 priority water bodies, which fall under several broad categories, including ongoing monitoring and research, water supply planning, and water resource development and conservation strategies. Finally, the plan concludes with lists of active and proposed projects that will support the improvement of priority water bodies within the swim plan area. As of the current revision, we have 13 active projects and 6 proposed projects listed in the Coastal Rivers Swim Plan. A few examples of those I've included on this slide here, both active and proposed. In January, the district posted the plan draft online for stakeholders and public review. We issued a press release and contacted agency and government stakeholders and solicited potential swim projects to support this plan. We've received stakeholder agency comments and have incorporated them into a revised draft, which is now online. At this point in time, we anticipate bringing the plan back to the board for a public hearing and to request the board's initial approval of the plan next month. And once we have a board-approved plan, we'll submit that to DEP for their final review. They'll have a 30-day final review period. And finally, we'll bring it back to you for governing board adoption of the plan. Currently approved plan and the 2025 Coastal Rivers Plan update are available through the myswanneeriver.com homepage by clicking on the Science and Data tab, then clicking on the Plans and Reports on the left-hand menu and scrolling down to the Surface Water Improvement Plans link. And this concludes my presentation, Madam Chair. If you or the board have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Questions on our swim plan?
Very thorough presentation. None for me.
Okay, there being no questions, you did an awesome job. Thank you. All right, I guess is that our only one on our workshop? Okay, then we will, that'll conclude our workshop, and I think Robin is probably ready for us for break. Okay, thank you very much.